We are joined with Hunter Hayes. How's it going, Hunter?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm extra well right now because I knew I was talking to you today, but it's really special because you're in the tour bus right now.
You're on tour with us.
I,
Welcome to my office is what we call this.
yeah, are you in the process to headed to Boston? Are you in Boston?
We're in the process, yeah. We kind of this is every now and then things work out for the better. We knew it was going to be a long drive from Nashville to Boston,
Yeah, just a little
and
bit.
we decided to split it up, and I think it worked out great because the team and I have worked really long hours to build this show, to build this tour, because there's just a lot of things I've never done, we've never experimented with. So it was like 12, 14-hour days, like 4 days in a row, for everybody. And so I think everyone needed a little bit of a break before we jump into the first show. So we're all just kind of taking a breath, getting some fresh air, and buying winter coats, because I don't think any of us are prepared for what we're about to experience.
No, it is freezing here, and I do want to talk to you about the Flying Solo Tour because I think it is just such a unique and just really cool thing, and I'm honestly honored you're kicking it off in Boston. Can you tell me what exactly it is and why you chose to fly solo?
It starts with last year, 2 years ago. Last year, one of the first shows I did coming out of the COVID lockdown was just me and an acoustic guitar in a room with people, with strangers, people I'd never met, people who'd never heard my music. And I didn't think it would go as well as it did, for no other reason than just like, it's just me and acoustic guitar. I'm telling stories. And it became just one of my favorite experiences in the world. It was so fun. It was so encouraging. It was so enlightening. I learned so much from it as a performer, even though I've been, I walked off that stage and I was pleasantly surprised by how it felt. And I remember just talking to my team and just saying, I want to do more of that. And I've been wanting to do a sort of a secondary tour, in the years. It was something we talked about. I wanted to do a secondary tour. I love playing with the band, and there's so many moments that I've had in like the Bluebird or like in a writer's round or like other things where I've been challenged by the unknown. And I've loved those moments because I think that is the spirit of making music. I think so much of what I love about music is space. Let's fill it with music. Let's fill it with lyrics. And so, this started technically over 12 years ago when I did my first radio tour. I would bring around a mini studio and I would build a song in front of them just for fun. And then that evolved into a thing that we try to do. We built something in 2015. We never took on the road. It was very complex. It required a lot of prep work. For every song that I played, it required like 7 days of rehearsals.
Damn.
And then that evolved. And in 2020, we were going to bring this thing on the road called The Lab. And we never got to bring it on the road. And so the more I sat with it, and the more I lived with it, the more I realized that I could build a show that was completely improv, that had the spirit of making music, not playing music, but making music in front of people, with audiences, at the same time as having a human connection moment with them. Whatever the vibe of the room is. If it's a really attentive listening audience, we'll do some deep cuts. If it's a loud, rambunctious, fun night, there's a bunch of high energy stuff that I can do. But it's a combination of like singer-songwriter, acoustic storytelling, and really nerdy music guide. I brought my living room on tour, and so, which is a studio. And so like I'm making stuff on the spot, on stage. We're starting from scratch every night, and every set list is going to be drastically different.
That's so wild. During rehearsals, have you found it to be challenging, or does it just come natural to you?
Well, I mean, yes, all of it. I mean, there's been challenges because as much as you run through these things, as much as you rehearse, I don't think you can fully rehearse for something like this, because the goal is for it to feel and be very improv friendly.
Yeah.
The arrangements can change. There's a whole section. I made 3 set lists. I've got a bank of songs that I'm working from, rather than a set list. And there's a whole section where it says, depending on what you played on the last song, switch instruments and play this song on the next instrument in the circle. And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of just, again, creation, right? Like I know the song, like, I'll find a song in the bank of songs and I'll pick an instrument, and I know the song and it has structure. At the same time, what I can do with it is very limitless. The challenges became, how do we make something that's improv friendly? Because most of the time when we introduce this much stuff, it's prep. It's, okay, this is going to happen at this time and this is going to happen at this time, because that's the only way that one person can manage all of that. But the more we sat and developed, and I worked with an incredible team of some of my favorite people that I've worked with over the past 15 years, we created something that, again, feels like my living room, functions a bit quicker and a bit more efficiently than me in my living room making music for 18 hours. So the challenges were mostly technical. How do we do this thing? There was a couple of just crazy things. Like, one of the things, we found a way to run my guitar signal through a drum machine so that I could play drums while playing guitar. Stuff like that we had to figure out, and we had to experiment and try and just trial and error. But where we got to was the place where I've got a bunch of really fun toys and I just get to make music.
Man, it's one thing to see like your favorite artists in performance or in concert, but I feel like you're allowing your fans to actually see you be an artist, which I think is a really cool, like, intimate experience.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Well, it's a completely new territory. And I think that's kind of the spirit I'm leading with, is not like, I don't want to come in with something too over prepared. I mean, I want to be prepared, but I don't want to be like over prepared where we're just going to repeat. Yeah. Rinse and repeat. Right. And I do want the audience to see the mess ups. And in fact, we have this secret mic on stage always called the talkback mic. And that's how we communicate with each other when things go wrong during the show. And, I realized if things go wrong, there's no way to hide. There's nowhere to go. There's no musical interlude to play. I can't let someone take a solo. So the talkback is now just a telephone on stage that the audience can actually hear. And so anytime anything goes wrong, I want to break the fourth wall. I want people to see the process. I want people to feel the electricity of what it's like when you go on a musical adventure.
I love that. And just as a reminder for our listeners at home, I know you dropped Red Sky in April. You toured the album. You released an extended version called Red Sky Continued, and then announced 2 additional legs of tour. So you've definitely been busy, just a little bit. When did the idea come to you to even extend the Red Sky era? Is that something you knew before going into it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly, I love making, we write a lot of music. I write a lot of music and make a lot of music for these albums. And I feel like we're constantly trying to figure out how to not be limited by the general sort of like 12 songs, 15 songs per album. And there's always stuff that doesn't make it but should. And my relationship with this is very different than other people's relationship with certain songs, right? Like in some ways, Chasing California has been around for a while. And yet when people hear it, it feels like a new part of this chapter that I've that we've started together. So things like that you realize, oh, I probably should put this on the album, even though I've been hearing it for 5 years and I'm like, I've fallen out of love with it. You go back, you play it for one person, one fan, and they're like, oh my God, you have to put this out. And it sort of makes you relook at it and rethink about it. And so you start from scratch and you reestablish a new relationship with it. And so like stuff like that happens all the time. And I'm always looking for ways to put more stuff out. And yeah, just like we knew the Red Sky tour in the spring was way, way over the top better than I think we had all even hoped and dreamed. So that was pretty obvious that we wanted to extend that. And I was really grateful for the fact that after going away for a while and people showed up, and a lot of people showed up 10 years in, right? Like a lot of people came in to meet and greet. Like, the last time I met you was in 2011. It's wild to sort of have that and feel that. And so that was really energizing and life-giving. And it just gave me so much joy and gratitude to sort of like carry me through, just continuing the album and continuing another leg of that tour. And
yeah, I mean, I was listening to a podcast, I forget what it was, but you had mentioned that you were kind of like anxious hitting the stage again after COVID, which, I mean, makes sense, man. Like, we were fucking locked up and we barely talked to anyone. So when did that, if ever, like, when did that stop? Like, was it the first time you played, or did it take some training?
Well, it's weird because it's not like I can't pinpoint one thing. Like, I can't tell you I felt this.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things kind of coming at you at the same time. I think honestly, it was just like being, having, playing in front of people every night, because I'm used to doing like 100, 200 shows a year.
Damn.
And so having that taken away, and you sort of like get like overly sensitized. It's like closing your eyes for 3 years and seeing the sunlight for the first time. It's a lot to process, and um, and there's a lot to take in. And so I think for me, it was just like learning how to navigate all of it. And I am naturally nervous when I get on stage too. So there's that portion of it. And yeah, it's just like, and this was a different, going out as an independent artist is a very different thing too. There's a lot of new elements to that. There's kind of like, it's just like it goes from, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a different spirit, I guess, in a lot of ways. So that can be nerve-wracking as well. So yeah, it was just like kind of like, what is it going to be like to return? Honestly, just with so much time away. And the first night in San Diego was just could not have gone any better. I learned a lot about myself and my health, I think, in one day, just because I hadn't sang, and I'd played some shows, but playing a 2-hour show was a new thing that I was getting back into. And it was really nice because I think there was a lot of stuff that I thought was just kind of gone. Like I, wrote a lot of the stuff on my debut album when I was like 15, 16. So singing some of those things is more challenging when you're 32.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that just like came back, and a lot of ceilings I thought, physically I thought I had were just kind of non-existent, and everything just kept improving and feeling better. And I was feeling more comfortable. And yeah, it was just kind of a tour full of, breakthrough moments, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Well, I love to hear that, and I feel like that kind of sentiment, at least from my listening, kind of resonates throughout the whole Red Sky Continued album. Like it seems like glimpses of your former music, but also this kind of like evolved, more mature sound. And also, I want to add groovy as hell. There are some really groovy tracks, man. Like Sober is one of my favorites. There's a particular track I want to talk to you about, though. The One That Got Away. I'm a lyrics guy through and through. And the phrase, the one that got away, it's typically associated with like loss and like negative. Mm-hmm. But this song is portrayed in a positive light from the perspective of the one who actually left. I'm kind of curious, what inspired the track, and when did you know you wanted to play with the phrase, the one that got away?
Well, exactly what you just said, right? Like how many times have we said it in a negative way of, man, I lost this person, lost this opportunity, lost this thing. It's always associated with loss. And I think sometimes, in some cases, when you lose something familiar, it's important to put it in perspective, because I think it's easy to say like, man, that relationship didn't work out. What a bummer. I'm so sad about it. And it's hard to flip the script and say, man, that relationship didn't work out. Boy, am I glad it didn't work out. Man, I think I'm lucky. And and rather than feeling bad about it, I'm going to remember that I have value. Because I hear a lot of people talk about lost opportunity in such a negative way. And it's like, that is not a negative thing. Mm-hmm. That is the door to your next chapter. And the moment you start seeing that, the moment you can start running into your next chapter. And I wanted One That Got Away to feel like that.
For sure. And another thing, too, from like one man to another, whenever there is, a guy talking about their experiences with a past relationship, I feel like it's always like, oh, I miss her. Like, I miss them so much. It's nice to be like, nah, like I'm done with that. I've come out on the better side. And I know I've resonated with that. I was scrolling through TikTok the other day, and I saw one of my ex-flings posted TikTok with their new significant other, and I was like, I could never be doing that. That's so not me. I'm happy for them. I've moved on. So thank you for the anthem.
That is a wake-up moment, isn't it? When you look at it and you're like, oh, that's where Could Have Been You came from. Yeah. It's one of those like, that could have been me, and I don't think that should have been me.
I'm not meant to be doing TikTok dances right now. Oh, yeah. That's funny. You mentioned Red Sky kind of marking your transition into being an independent artist. But not only that, it's like your return from COVID. And I know previously, I think I heard on New York Live that you mentioned while you still had like creative freedom, you did have to like sit on committees to make decisions about the album. Where Red Sky now, you're like the sole stakeholder. With Red Sky being the first experience with this creative freedom, I'm kind of curious, did did decision making come easy to you, especially when you were conditioned, you know, to kind of rely on others? Like, were you able to be really clear and concise and stick to your guts?
Yes and no, both. Not to be that guy again, but
Hey,
I look up to a lot of bands because there is something beautiful about, you know, a group of people making decisions together. I don't believe in, I don't think it's healthy to sit here and I don't want the career or the life or the relationship with my team or anyone to say, this is what I'm, you know, my way or the highway. There are times that I have learned where I give myself less credit than I think I should. And in purely in the, I'm standing up, trusting my gut. I'm not saying this is the perfect thing to do. I'm saying I feel like this is the right thing to do. You guys got to trust me. And when it fails, you know, you can point it at me. It's fine.
yeah,
And when it works, hopefully this will build trust for me and myself, in addition to the people around me, etc. I believe in having and surrounding myself with people who are willing to like just say, man, I totally hear you, and I kind of still disagree, and it just comes down to who cares more, and you know what I mean, or like it just I think it allows for a healthier way of making decisions, and at the same time, it's art. There is no right or wrong, technically.
yeah,
You know, I think there's right things to say and wrong things to say, but when it comes to, you know, what songs make it to the album, what songs don't, I think I'm learning how to trust myself in certain areas that I should,
yeah,
as just not just like as an artist, but just as me, because every artist is different, and I'm learning my version of being an artist, and I'm learning certain things that I, you know, maybe jumped in and micromanaged that I need to just kind of step away from and trust other people, and know that I'm surrounded by really fucking awesome, smart people, caring, compassionate, kind, and capable people. And so it's both. It was kind of like learning a lot, and also just like you know, being in conversations, and I was never, you know, necessarily in, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the freedom and the, hey, let's try this thing. You know, this, I've done this for 10 years, and you know, the environment is changing, so maybe we do this now, and this accomplishes the goal, and does it in a different way that's maybe more efficient. Let's do it, and we do it, you know, as opposed to, well, it's been done this way for 10 years, let's continue to do it, you know.
yeah.
That part was really, it has been really enlightening and really fun too. So really, really grateful for that. The fact that I can, you know, that we can all come to the table and say, hey, has anyone questioned why we're still doing this thing this way?
Yeah.
Or does it even matter, you know?
I mean, perhaps it's the, you know, this upcoming solo tour, but is there something where you kind of said like, what the hell, let's have a little gamble during this Red Sky continued practice or project rather?
Well, I think the solo tour is less of a gamble and more of a long time coming, you know? It's like that vacation you've been planning for years and you just never gave yourself the time off to do it. That's what this feels like. It feels like I'm on a vacation with my best friends. I'll let you know how it feels after the first show, but that's how it feels. That's how it feels. So I don't know that I would call that a gamble. I think it was more like there was a couple of creative things, like, you know, we kept wondering about music videos because there's so much work that goes into music videos. I think this is a great example. A small example, but something that I feel like is worth sharing for, you know, anybody out there creative or anybody who can relate to this, that we, you know, there was this systematic approach to music videos, and I was putting out a lot of music from Red Sky before the album came out. It was the most music I'd put out from an album before an album got released. It made it way more fun. That I think was a bit of a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, there's the traditional model and there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of, you know, data and stuff for putting, you know, 3-4 songs out and then putting out the album. And we just noticed that we don't necessarily need to play that strategy. Why not let every moment have its day the way that you would the first 3 songs. And we really enjoyed that. We learned a lot from that, and we got a lot out of that. And I felt like that was a just overall better way for me to release at least this album and those songs at that time.
Yeah.
And with that, that meant we were going to be making a lot of music videos, and making music videos is a long and very, it's a lot of work for a lot of people. And we just kept returning back to the same process. And so we finally had this conversation, and we decided that we had, a handful of songs, 5, 6 songs. We had 2 songs we knew what we wanted to do, and we found a location. We built an awesome little small creative team of people, and we went out to this location with a handful of songs. We got the first 2 songs like videoed on the first day, which I've never done 2 music videos in one day. I've done a lot of music videos in 2 and 3 days, but we did 2 music videos in one day. And then the next day we improv'd the next 3 music videos
In one day?
And it was just like, in a day and a half.
Yeah.
Because we lost light quick because of where we were, which we didn't realize. And it also got really fucking cold. So we learned that the hard way. But yeah, we knew we had an idea. We had some songs, we had some stuff, but it was a very open space where we just sat at a dinner table the night before, and we were just like, well, man, this area of that location really made me feel like this, and I honestly feel like there's a message in like walking through this area and feeling this and seeing this imagery, especially coming out of this other music video where that sort of like lends the story to like continue and so it was just a really fun conversation that led to 2 days of improvising music videos. And it was just like, it was that kind of stuff that I really thoroughly enjoyed on this process.
That's so cool. I mean, a lot of our listeners are artists or independent artists themselves, so I know that that's something they will resonate and learn from, to just kind of experiment and do things like you haven't done before.
I really think improv is like the next wave of like, it's no longer like, oh, we have a small budget, we have a small team, let's just go make something happen. I think that's becoming a more valuable currency than a well-planned massive production product, because you see more of the people doing it. Mm-hmm. You see more of their personality, you see more of the things that they love, the things that excite them. If it's fun, you make something that feels fun. Even if it's a sad song, people can feel the way you felt making it. And I just think that that's, at least in my small experience with it and with everything that I've seen, it's way less, well, we have to do it this way because of the budget. It's more like, now this is a way better way to do it. We're going to feel way more of the artist and the intention behind the music and the art in general. I just think it's invaluable.
I used to be a country radio DJ way back in the day, which was just a really funny era for me, but you're the guest here, not me. But anyways, during my time there, it was obvious that like Hunter Hayes had super fans, and they were no stranger to calling into the radio. So I went out to my DMs and I reached out to some of your biggest super fans, and I asked them if they had any questions they wanted to ask you. So Hunter, would you mind if I relayed some of the questions from them?
I think this is brilliant. I love this. Absolutely.
Okay. What part of the Flying Solo tour are you most excited about, and what process are you most nervous about, since you've never done a tour like this before? And this is from Riley.
Riley?
Yeah.
The part I'm most nervous about is honestly just, I'll get that out of the way first. Everything working. There's a lot of technical things that have to work and speak the same languages for me to be able to do what I do and feel comfortable on stage. I've got an incredible team of people, and I have all the faith and confidence in them. Technology is probably some pieces of technology that we're working with are infinitely less dependable than we are, Yeah. So and it's just like troubleshooting is quite complex in this setup. And at the same time, we designed every single new element that we added. There was just kind of this challenge of like, how do we make it work? How do we make troubleshooting easy? And how do we make a show without it? Because at some point, ironically, using some of the pilot sort of lingo, pilot lingo, essentially, like, you have to be prepared for everything to fail at some point,
Yeah.
because, if it can fail, it will at some point, and you have to be prepared for it. You can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. And so there's a lot of that prep. And at the same time, like, if any of those pieces go down, I can still play a show without it, and that's kind of the freedom in it. So that's the only scary part. But the thing I'm most excited about is just doing it for the first time, because it really is just like, it was so weird not to like rehearse every song 18 times like we normally do. And at the same time, we built a stage that's just like there for in the moment music making. And it allows me to think that way. I love thinking that way and being in that, being present, and just like, how do I want the song to sound? What sounds do we want to bring in, and how do we want to arrange it? And do we want to loop it or do we not, etc. So I'm just excited for people to feel that joy that I feel when I'm just making stuff.
Yeah. Wow, man, I'm really excited for you. I'm like really like the way that you're talking about it. I'm just really happy that you're able to even experience such a thing. Okay, but
yeah, man, me too.
Andrea has a question for you, and it is, what is your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Yeah. The one. The first time I heard that, when that album dropped, especially at that time, it was just such a beautiful breath of fresh air. And I was so grateful for that whole project, because, I think we look to really established and massive artists for kind of this, like, hey, is it cool if we like totally turn the page and all of us just start making like really, introspective acoustic music for a hot minute, because it's a lockdown and we're all alone, and so I think creatively it was like just such a breath of fresh air, and so beautiful, and a nice like reset.
For sure. I felt the same way. I remember I was away at Martha's Vineyard when it came out, and I woke up at like 5 a.m. for some reason, and I went on a walk and
What a
listened to it.
sentence, by the way.
Yeah.
I was away in Martha's Vineyard. I was sipping on my third glass of Chardonnay.
No, realistically, I was hungover and I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk and I listened to it, and it changed my life for sure.
That's amazing.
Okay,
nice.
Christina wants to know, what is your favorite song from Red Sky to play live?
I really like playing About a Boy. My favorite song from Red Sky is Wallflower. And I love playing that song. I think I'm going to love playing that song on this tour, probably more than any other songs on Red Sky. So I might change my answer, because this version of Wallflower is way more just like, here are the words that I wrote. Here's what I'm saying. So yeah, About a Boy or Wallflower. Yeah. And High Tide's a blast to play with a band. There's nothing quite as fun as that song. And Victory. Victory kind of feels like a really big crowd moment every night. So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that song needs to be in an NFL commercial, by the way. I petitioned to it. That's exactly what I hear when I listen to that. I also love the lyrics of that.
I appreciate that. For sure. I would love that.
We'll get it synced. Okay.
Go Sports.
Last question. This is for me. How discreet did you have to be during the filming of The Masked Singer?
Very. I left the house. Well, yeah, they'd pick you up every day, and I left the house in full, like the visor, the hoodie, the gloves, the whole thing.
Wait, they pick you up from the house every day?
Yeah, I was able to accomplish a lot of tasks in one sort of long trip to do that. So because I was in secret. So I took the same, when I was finishing high school, I took this accelerated course and essentially took one course as my senior year over the course of 2 months. And it would start at 7 and it would end at 11. So I was done by the time I would normally be waking up, because I work late. I like working at night. And so every day I would get home at like 11:30 and I would just start my normal music making day. So I kind of took the same approach in the scheduling for that show. And so I would secretly disappear at a time when no one would expect me to be awake anyway. And then I would come back to this house that I found, and I wanted to write and record at this really cool like spot. So yeah, they would they would pick you up in this like this car, and the driver doesn't know your name. They call you their own, like they develop a code
No
language
way.
for you. Yeah, like very few people know. No one knows who you are when you're on set. Like there's like 3 people you can talk to, and their shirts literally say "Talk to me,"
That's
and
wild.
everyone else's shirts or badges or hoodies say "Don't talk to me." And if you're in a room, it's like this code. When you're in a room and there are 4 people, if one of them has a shirt that says "Don't talk to me," you have to keep your visor on, your gloves on. Like you can't wear any part of your, like, it's just, yeah, normal clothing. Like you have to be, it's wild. Yeah.
That's so funny. I'm I didn't realize it would be that intense, but it makes so much sense. I mean, it's a national TV show.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild. And yeah, I definitely couldn't tell any friends or, tell anybody why I was there. The only people who ended up finding out were my parents, because they came to visit me and I invited them to the taping, which turned out to be my last show with them.
Ooh.
So it was perfect timing though. Well, it was perfect timing. They
Yeah.
got to see it, experience it with me. And then I just kept working on the project.
That's so funny, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are all the fan questions, and I know you're still writing, the Red Sky High, but I'm curious, are you writing these days?
A little bit. I've started the next project. I try to stay like 2 projects ahead.
Okay.
So just because I like having space. Like I like writing without any sort of like, I have to write about this, or this project has to be this. I like writing and just seeing what happens, and then letting that sort of like grow in the garden, in the greenhouse, and and then going back to the greenhouse to see what's happened a couple months later, and start working on the production and say, okay, I think this is the message of the album. I think this is the spirit. So, and I love conceptual things, but every time I try to do something like super intentional, I always just get, it gets swept away by reality, and that stuff's better anyway. So, yeah.
Has there anything that's been particularly inspiring you lately?
Yeah. A lot of stuff that came out of like the self-work, the therapy type stuff, and all the things I've learned from that. I don't want to say too much, but I really do feel like this project is inspired by me wanting to create more of the world that I want to live in, rather than sort of react to it or respond to it.
Whoa.
Or talk about it. Yeah, I had 2 days without electricity in like March or April, and it was like the 2 best days of my year, because I didn't get on anything. I focused on, I had space, and so I focused on what I want to be, what I want to create, what I want to put in the world. And I was like, wow, I should be doing this intentionally. And so it led to a series of small changes and a series of some drastic changes that, and so this project is kind of like experiment and manifestation. Not to be that weird about it, but it's like
you're speaking my language.
A chance. There's a couple songs that I've already written about things that haven't happened or don't exist, but they're dreams, and it's like, well, if I write about it, maybe it'll happen. So yeah.
Are you a yogi, like a yoga guy?
No.
All right.
No.
Sorry. No. It was giving very much so yoga guy, but I'm very much so eager to hear that, because I think that's.
Listen, man. Give me the next 3 months after this tour. A lot can change. A lot can happen.
That's my intentional, like, no electricity time. But anyway,
I respect the shit out of that,
dude. I'm like a superhuman when I actually do it, because it goes ebbs and flows, just like everything in fucking life. But now I'm at a part where I do it every single day, and everything I do because of it is so much better. And then when I don't do it for an extended period of time, I'm a shell of a man. So we're working.
That's super inspiring, man. Yeah. Good for you. Thanks for sharing that. That's incredible. That encourages me to try it more.
Give it a whirl.
For sure.
We do some weird stuff here. Sensory deprivation tanks, you name it.
Big fan of sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah, man. How, do you do them often?
Yeah. No, I mean, it depends. When I'm off tour, it's a little bit easier to find.
Yeah, true.
Than when we're in, random cities. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of a sensory deprivation tank.
I feel you. Like the things that come out of my mind are like so amazing, and then I always take it and run with it and create something even better. So,
yeah.
All right, Hunter Hayes, I could talk to you all day, but I like to wrap up every interview with this question: what is a goal that you have, completely unrelated to music or your career, that you would like to accomplish in the near future?
My fans are not going to be surprised by any of this. I've been wanting to get my pilot's license for years. I've been a student pilot off and on for like close to 10 years. I think the more I get into it, the more I realize how much focus it requires. And I'm getting better about that. I'm learning to be more disciplined about that. And at the same time, the times that I've done it were when I was kind of burnt out on music. And so it would give me life. And as soon as it would give me life, I would run back to music to go keep working and finish. And so I've constantly sort of entered at moments where it was kind of, I wasn't so focused on getting my license. I was just focused on getting hours and learning and the educational process. I'm looking forward to making time for it. Because it's something that I want. Every time I walk away from it too, it's a completely different part of my brain. Where we talked about music doesn't have a right or wrong. Piloting is there's a lot of systems and checks and structure. And I think it's actually given me structure in my normal life, in my, music life, or at least in my business, whatever. But I've been thoroughly looking forward to getting my license at some point in the next, 2 years. I just by me hesitating, I know that I won't make time for it in the next 6 months. But in the next year, I think that's something I want to accomplish.
Hell yeah. That's so exciting. I wish the best for you, and I hope in 2 years when we chat next, when you're in Boston for the Flying Solo Part 3, whatever we're at that point, you'll be flying here on your own. You won't be taking a bus.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.